Hey guys, Aggie K, wealth therapist, and this is a series I am doing this week called Income Leaping Livestreams, like leaping lemurs. This, I think I want to take down. It's not distracting us. I'm trying this new setup. Let's see how it goes. My Diva light, I don't know if anybody has a Diva light, but it's crapping out, and I've used it a handful of times, so that's annoying. Anyone else have that problem? Oh, there it goes. Now it's working. It's so finicky. Okay, so coming at you with some good lighting, I think. Aggie K, wealth therapist, and this is going to be a series I'm doing this week called Income Leap Livestreams. So people talk a lot about this identity shift that happens for people, or that needs to happen for you to step into your wealthy self or your rich self. So I want to talk a little bit about what that looked like for me, transitioning into making six figures consistently and consistent income, and what were the changes that I had to make identity-wise that helped me to get there. Okay, so let's talk about that. And the title of this live stream is why I had to become a tough bee in order to soften into six figures, because it's both. There was both a part of me, and this isn't going to be the same for everybody, it's going to be different for everybody, but I do believe that what is the same is that you're going to have to toughen up in certain places and soften in other places. I do think that that is the same across the board with all my clients in terms of creating that very consistent income, which is really what everybody's after, is feeling like that's going to keep happening, right? That things are going to keep going your way, that you're going to keep making that money, that you're able to double it or triple it or whatever the case might be. So what did that mean for me? I think for me that meant, and why I say tough B is because I did have to toughen up. There were certain places within myself that I wasn't very tough, that I was really soft, that I would lose myself in. I would lose my momentum, I would lose my drive, I would lose my excitement for what I was doing, I would lose my passion, I would lose a whole bunch of things in certain areas of my life where I really had to learn to toughen up. And I always hated that term and was really turned off by that term, always, of toughening up, because my background is as a therapist and I don't want to see people toughen up, I want to see people soften. Yes, the marketing's working, Deepa. That's the idea. So as a therapist, I didn't like this idea of toughening up because I had been trained and I had felt most of my life as a person who was extremely sensitive and didn't feel like I was very tough and didn't want to be tough. It was opposite for me, where I really rebelled against people telling me not to be so sensitive and not to be so shy. That was always the thing growing up for me, was hearing that, right? Was hearing that I'm too sensitive and I'm too soft and I need to stop crying and get over it, right? So naturally, because I had a buildup of that, I had resistance to toughening up in certain areas. That I didn't recognize as places where I needed to grow in order to grow into this person who had these, desires, to fulfill these desires. So that was something I naturally rebelled against. I wanted to own the sensitivity and I wanted to own the softness, but I also was resistant to growing in the places where I was too soft. So let me describe a little bit of what that is, because usually it's opposite day. Usually what's going to need to happen for you to make those big leaps is opposite day. Or what me and my people I've worked with, we call opposite day. So for me, opposite day was toughening up in places where I was soft and softening in the places where I was already too tough. And it's not going to be the same for me as it is for you. It's going to be customized for each and every person, right? But that's the concept essentially I want you to think about. And if you want to do mindset work around it, then I would just start journaling, like, where am I soft and where am I hard? Because you're probably going to have to switch those up to see a difference, to see a change, for your neural pathways to change, for your expectations to change, and for you to be able to attract something different than you're currently attracting. So for me, the places where I would fall apart was emotionally, right? I had to become a tough bee emotionally in certain ways. Now, this is not a blanket statement. Don't go and, freak out about that. Like, you can't be soft and you can't feel your feelings. Of course you need to. What would happen for me, like, this is about discernment. This isn't about blanket statements or saying, like, I can't be emotional, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. Or I'm not allowed to feel things to make that money. That's not what this is about. This is about discerning where, for me, as an example, and this I see with lots of clients, is that you would allow, or I would allow, the emotional roller coaster to take me over and take me down. Right? That's the place where I needed to toughen up and start compartmentalizing and dealing with those issues and still running my business. And dealing with the healing and processing the emotions and having the feelings and still making money. For me, those two things were like, I could not have one with the other. There was a real sense of separation between being able to have money and being able to have an emotional process. And a part of me really didn't believe that I could have both at the same time. And that might be true for you too. And that was one of those places where I had to really toughen up and get over that part of me that wanted to just indulge and take and sort of like dissolve into that pain and mess and all of that, and stop living the rest of my life and stop running my business. Right? So that was the place where I had to learn to toughen up. That was one of the places. As a martyr was one of the places I really had to toughen up and become a tough little bee, was as a martyr. Like, I wasn't going to have, and this is going to be true for any of you guys who are trying to get to that next level income wise, is that you're not going to be able to be a martyr and be a leader or at the same time, because the energy is totally conflicting. It's not congruent. And I thought that I could continue to be a martyr in my personal life and be a leader in my business. And I couldn't. Because it wasn't congruent. I was like living a double life. And I couldn't make those leaps because I wasn't feeling empowered enough in my personal life. And it might be the reverse for you. It might be business versus the opposite. But just take these lessons as, in general ways and apply them to yourself. So one is, where might you need to toughen up emotionally, where you're falling apart over stuff, where I was looking really short term in terms of what was gonna like feed my business for a long time, like the vanity metrics and all of that, right? So take a look at where you're emotionally just like letting stuff go, and where do you need to toughen up. Take a look at where are you the martyr in your personal life, and know that you have to have congruency to go to the next level. And I could not, and most of my clients, all of my clients, do not get away with being the martyr in their personal life while they're a leader in their business. You have to be congruent, because if that is leaking your energy in one place in your personal life, it will inevitably not allow you to go to the next level in your business life. So if that makes sense, let me know. If it doesn't, I'm going to keep going. And drop me a line in the comments. So I had to become a tough bee, and it's not my nature. My nature, and maybe it's not my nature because I grew up with a dominant parent. Maybe it's not my nature because that got scared out of me, pushed out of me by somebody else. And maybe it's not my nature because it just is my nature. Maybe I'm softer by nature, but I'm starting to think that was more of an environmental thing than it was a nature thing, that I wasn't a tough bee to begin with. I don't know. Maybe if I hadn't grown up with a dominant parent, I would have naturally been more drawn to being a tough bee. I don't know. But these are the things I had to evolve into to be able to achieve the success that I have. So emotionally, as a martyr, in terms of sacrifice, take a look at where you're sacrificing in your life because if there's sacrifice going on, if there's martyrdom going on, for sure you're leaking energy and you need to toughen up in that department. Where is that leaking energy? It can be with your kids, your partner, your parents, your clients. Where do you feel like you need to toughen, not where you need to feel like you toughen up, but where do you feel like you're too soft? So take a look at that. I also had to toughen up in terms of my self-care. And when I say self-care, I don't mean just like bubble bath. That's not what I mean. I mean, where was I being truly just cheap with myself? And again, it wasn't congruent. It was not congruent to the leader I was showing up as, the business person I wanted to show up as. And so I want you to take a look at your life where you need to toughen up. And self-care is like the number one thing that seems like the accoutrement to success, but it's actually one of the foundations. It's not the topping. It's the basic. It's the thing at the very bottom of the foundation that if you don't establish, you can do it later, and people do it later, but I think it's harder mindset-wise to get yourself to start thinking as a person who makes six figures or multiple six figures if you're not really taking care of yourself in a way that a person who makes that kind of money is. Because for sure you have certain ideas about what that looks like, and maybe you can't afford to do them all. Maybe you can't afford the personal trainer or the home cook or the whatever, but you can start doing things that look after yourself on a daily basis. You can exercise every day. If you have a phone, you can watch an exercise. You can do stuff. So I want you to think about that. I had to become a tough bee about boundaries. I had to become a really tough bee about boundaries, about what was work time, about what was personal time, about what I needed to get done, about what the priorities were in my life. I had to get a tough bee about that, because if my priority was going to be for this business to make multiple six figures and to be able to give my family a different kind of life and myself a different kind of life, I really had to prioritize that. I really had to get tough about prioritizing that, which meant I had to say no to certain things, you know? So that's like an action-based thing, but there was also things like mentally where I just couldn't do them anymore. So one of the other places I had to toughen up was focusing on money. I had to toughen up in that department. I had to stop looking at and mindset work. I had to toughen up about how much mindset work I actually needed to do to see results, because the scarcity part of me overestimated the amount of results that I should get and underestimated the amount of mindset work I was doing. Like, I needed to do way more mindset work and way less everything else to see the results that I wanted to see. Right? So I really had to toughen up about my mindset work and what that meant and how much I was actually doing. And I'm not talking just about like journaling and tapping, like those are tools for mindset work, but I also had to do like just the big shifting, the deeper questions, the standing up for myself in ways that I never had, to step into that tough bee and kind of like, you know, own that. And I was afraid to do that. I was afraid I was going to lose people. I was afraid I was going to change my life in ways that I wasn't going to like. And everything turned out okay, obviously. I'm still here. But there was like some tough decisions, and there was a loneliness to those experiences that I had to toughen up to, because what I wanted became so much more important, and such a small cost to what it is that I was going to get in return. So those are the places I had to become a tough bee in order to hit those six-figure marks. And really, like, take those to heart. Take a look at where do you think you're too soft? Like, another place that I had to toughen up was in terms of my willpower and what I thought I was capable of doing, and how much I thought I was capable of doing. And I know, like, willpower, I've talked about willpower and alignment and kind of the difference, and that you can't willpower your way all the way there. No, you can't. But because of my kind of like tendency towards giving up, I didn't have a really strong willpower muscle to make something happen. You know, so there's kind of like a difference between that and alignment, for instance, where now, like, I know when I get a program, you know, kind of downloaded to me, I know this is it. I know it's going to happen. I know it's in alignment, and I just go with it. Whereas at the beginning, to get from like 0 to that first, you know, 10K month or whatever, it did require willpower because I wasn't used to putting that much effort into things. I just wasn't. I didn't have that like experience of that coach pushing me until I hired a coach. And that's really the only thing I invested in, was an assistant and a coach to get to those 6 figures. I really didn't do anything else. And I was very lucky to get a very good coach, and that was spot on and it got me there. But that was one of the big things, was I didn't recognize how much effort was required. And I wasn't used to producing that much effort towards myself. I was used to producing that much effort towards other people, but not towards me and my business and my success. And that was a huge place I had to toughen up. I really had to toughen up in terms of how much effort I was giving towards my own stuff. If that resonates, you know, say I, throw up some hearts and some likes. But that was a place I really had to become a tough B, was how much effort I was putting in towards my stuff, my thing, my mindset work, my marketing, my showing up, my giving, my amount of value that I thought was necessary to create a certain result was way different than what was actually necessary. It was way different. You know, I thought it was going to be minimal. It was not minimal. Look at the amount of, and I'm not saying like you need to produce a ton to make a ton of money. But what happened in the producing a ton is I created a ton of confidence. Like, I have 100+ YouTube videos out there now. I have a certain level of confidence about my content and showing up on camera that I needed to get there. I needed that momentum, and I needed that willpower to show up every day and create. And I underestimated that at the beginning. I really did. So take a look at those places. Those are the places, for me, I had to toughen up. And for you, it might be the reverse. It might be places where you need to soften. So let me talk about the places where I had to soften to hit that 6 figures. Okay, so where did I soften up? You know, self-talk, self-worth choices, but really a lot of it was like how I was thinking about myself. And I know this, like, people talk about this ad nauseum in the online coaching world, that the self-talk has a big difference, but most people will not take the time to examine what they are actually thinking, because it feels like busy work and not work that's going to make them money. Most people won't do it. And it's one of the most powerful things that you can do if you can just put pause on that victim sense and that urgency, which is so much comes up in that 0 to 10K place, 0 to 10K months place. If you can put pause on that and start looking at how you actually talk to yourself, and just don't assume because you're a life coach or you're a mindset coach or you're anything coach that you ought to, or that you're an actor or producer, whatever it is that you do, real estate, that you automatically have really high self-worth. You might not. We teach what we have to learn, and there's so many different layers to it that you can't assume. And that's really the first place to start. Don't give it lip service, really do the work of that. It's kind of like, I describe it like people hate doing the food diary thing and like writing down every single thing they eat. Well, it's the same thing about what you think about money and what you think about success. And if you're not monitoring that, you cannot change it. And it's kind of like the thankless work you have to do to get there, but most people don't put in that work. Most people are getting results on like an hour of mindset work a day, and that's why they're seeing mediocre results. That's just the truth of it. So I had to soften in terms of self-talk, self-thought. I had to soften in terms of my expectations of growth, of how fast I would grow, of like how many followers, all the vanity metrics. I had to soften in terms of that because they really weren't serving me very well. And I have to say, this standing up and doing live streams things, it's excellent. So good. I hate sitting all day. So I had to soften in terms of looking at vanity metrics. I had to soften in terms of like my self-talk, self-thought around money and success. I had to soften around my scheduling, my lifestyle. I really had to soften in those regards because I wasn't looking at how I was designed. I was looking at what I had been doing previously and trying to keep up that pace. And it was like it was sabotage from the get-go. I had to let go of tons of things in my schedule and in my lifestyle that I just wasn't going to be able to do at 6 figures. I had to let them go. I had to take a real look and soften up around that in terms of what I thought I was capable of getting done in one day, or in a week or a month or 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. I had to really soften in terms of that because it wasn't realistic. And that happens a lot. I notice that a lot with one-on-one clients, and people come to me in PTP and they're doing so many things. And I'm like, that does not feel wealthy. That feels like I'm keeping myself really busy because I'm scared of being poor. I'm scared of not making money. You know, that's more the vibe. And that's what it was for me, right? When I was doing so much, I was doing so much because I was afraid of not doing so much. I was afraid that like I wouldn't get any results if I wasn't doing so much. So the quality, I softened around my time and schedule, but I toughened up in terms of like quality, creativity, and the effort I was putting out in terms of what I was offering the audience. So that shifted. I had to soften around my design. And you can look at human design stuff for this. I don't delve really deep into that. It's not my niche or anything, but I do think honoring how you're designed is really important. When I softened around how I was designed, which for me in human design is projector, but I mean, basically it's somebody who does not generate all the time. I'm not a person who has like endless amounts of energy. I'm not a person who's constantly creating, and that might be you, which means you have to honor that design, that you're like this creative idea person and that's what you're best at. And you should stop doing everything else, you know? And that was for me, the opposite was like, I'm not that person. So I really have to honor my pace and honor my timing and honor my energy, which were all things I wasn't used to doing. So I had to soften in terms of, hey, I'm designed this way. And how many times do I need to learn that I'm a person that needs to go to bed between 9 and 10 p.m. and wakes up between 6 and 7 a.m., sorry. You know, that's just my optimal place, that I have to exercise during the day and eat, and like all of those things about the way that I'm built, I had to accept. I had to soften around that. I had to soften around this idea that I was, this super nice person. I had to really soften around that because it's not that I'm not a nice person, but it wasn't like the thing that was that kept me, you know, going and happy and alive. I had to soften to this idea that I had to be tough as a coach. I had to be tough around my family for them to for there to be more room for me to show up. I had to let go and soften around this idea that I had to be this nice person in every department of my life, because it was where I had gotten a lot of my props and I was afraid to be anything else. So I really had to let go of that piece, and that maybe it was okay that I was like a lot of other things and maybe not the most thoughtful person in the world. You know, I had to soften around that and let that go. And ironically, of course, when you soften, like it shows up very easily. But I had to soften around my ideas of who I thought I was and who I would become in business. And which is, you know, one of the great passions of my life is business and running this business and helping people to make more money, and showing people how to use their mindset for that. So that was another piece I had to soften around. So timelines, metrics, I had to soften around. I had to really soften around my capacity to take in pleasure. And maybe soften isn't the right word, expand is really the right word, but I had to do something because I had a real block around how much goodness, how much pleasure, how much enjoyment I could take in on a daily basis. I had to build my tolerance for that. So maybe that's a toughen up one, I don't know, but you get what I'm saying, right? I had to toughen up in terms of, or soften up, whichever way you see it, around my ability to receive pleasure, and how I was capped at a certain level was really truly reflected in my income. So it's like it's a balance, right? It's a juggling act, it's a balance, because there's like, it's just different. It's different neural pathways. You're softening where you were tough before, and you're toughening where you were soft before. And it's kind of opposite day, and it's a little bit crazy, but this is what changes things. This is what changes your identity into someone who can actually step into that 6 figures versus, you know, treading water where you are. And I think that's about it. I softened into me. I softened into me, into the places that were harsh within me, where I didn't give myself very much compassion, where I didn't give myself very much credit, where my standards were so incredibly high for myself and impossible to meet. I had to soften in those places also to be able to hit those 6 figures. And luckily I had amazing coaches along the way to remind me of those, like 2 balances, that there was places that I needed to soften within myself and give myself credit. And really celebrate myself and celebrate my wins. So yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm Aggie K, Wealth Therapist. This was a nice long one, but it's really kind of a training. Like, take this to heart. This is good stuff. I might take it down later because it's so juicy. I might charge for it. So make sure you hop on, share this, like, love if it resonates with you. If you have questions, pop them in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm open. The doors are open to the Unmastermind. And why do I call it to the Unmastermind is because I want one-on-one, right? I'm just greedy like that. I want one-on-one. I want the experience of the expert on my stuff, guiding me. And that's what I want to give to other people. And groups are fine and groups are great, but I want it to be super effective. I want it to be like one-on-one in a group, because that's what I want. And maybe I'm selfish that way, but if you're selfish that way, this is going to be the group for you. This is where we're going to be tackling issues that people are hitting in that 10K to 50K a month place. So this is exciting. There's gonna be some incredible people in this group. If you have questions about it or thinking about that this might be a fit for you, please PM me. It's gonna be a very small group, so I wanna chat with everyone who is gonna be in it to make sure there's like nice synchronicity, and it's open to people who are making 5K a month or are graduates of PTP. So let me know, pop into my, slide into my DMs and let me know if you want to have a chat. And we can set that up and see if you're a candidate for the Unmastermind. Starts October 15th. So come Unmastermind with me. Thanks guys for joining me. Mwah. See you on the next training. Bye.